Paraguay is a small South American country that may fly under the radar when it comes to top tourist destinations. It's close to the world-famous Iguazu Falls, but that is across the border in neighboring Argentina and Brazil. Most of Paraguay's landscape is simple farmland and countryside. There's no major mountain range, it is landlocked, so tourists aren't flocking to seaside beaches. It has a fairly small population at 6 million residents. From an outsider's view, some might say Paraguay doesn't have much to offer. But if you travel the country, get to know the people, and hear their stories, you find that they are the destination. Paraguayans are warm, kind, and family-oriented.
Pelas crianças, aqui o país Paraguai há muitas crianças, né? As famílias aqui são grandes, então eles têm um cuidado com as crianças, eles têm um cuidado com os idosos e por isto, por este amor, por esse desprendimento, eles são muito unidos.
Committed Seventh-day Adventists in the country are passionate about spreading the gospel and growing the church.
E creio que o mais importante, ou tanto quanto, é esse foco missionário que eles têm. Eles têm o desejo de pregar, eles têm o desejo de falar, eles têm o desejo de ver uma igreja grande, de ver o crescimento da igreja. Aí fica a questão, né? Se não fosse esse desprendimento deles, esse desejo deles, talvez nós nem existiríamos hoje.
These members will the church to continue on, even after decades of struggle without decent meeting spaces. There are only about 15,000 Adventists in Paraguay, and many feel it's hard to grow that number without permanent church buildings.
A nossa maior dificuldade aqui é, de fato, termos uma estrutura física para podermos agregar esses irmãos, receber esses irmãos e agregar os outros que estão estudando a Bíblia e recebendo a palavra de Deus. Aqui, a igreja é missionária, é uma igreja que prega, é uma igreja que sai, é uma igreja que visita, é uma igreja que dá estudos bíblicos, mas muitas vezes se esbarra nesse aspecto aí, né?
Despite inadequate conditions, members in Paraguay continue to meet each week, pushing forward with the call of the Gospel Commission.
Se congrega debaixo de uma árvore, se congrega em uma casa, em uma residência, e aí às vezes não tem o banheiro adequado para a quantidade de pessoas, não tem um espaço para fazer aí os departamentos para as crianças, ou o clube de aventureiros, desbravadores.
Edson works with multiple congregations located near the capital city of Asunción. He has seen this struggle firsthand, especially at this one, J. Augusto Saldivar. In the 90s, this group started meeting under a mango tree next to the house of Catalina Jimenez. She and her family have lived in different houses on the same property for years. But Catalina wasn't always Adventist. It was during a serious illness, in a moment of desperation, that she finally came to God.
Cuando eso yo me levanté y me arrodillé y alcé mi mano, pero yo no sabía que era como tengo que hacer a Dios. Y levanté mi mano y le dije a Dios, bueno, mi Dios, si es tu voluntad, cúrame. Y si no es tu voluntad, llévame. Porque ya no quiero vivir más. Si vos querés que yo te siga, cúrame. Y si no, llévame para tranquilizar a mi hijo. Y en esa noche yo soñé cuando viene Jesús así con su cruz ahí en mi cara y me dijo, levántate y va conmigo. Me voy con él ahí, arrodillate y alza tu mano y yo ya me voy. Nadie va a creer mi testimonio, pero es real.
After this healing, Catalina was committed to serving God and sharing Him with everyone. She dedicated herself to her small congregation in J. Augusto Saldivar and their weekly gatherings under the tree. Sometimes if it rained, they'd have to move into her house for worship, which was cramped, but they didn't have many other options. Finally, in the year 2000, they scraped up enough money to build a small wooden structure in Catalina's yard. It wasn't much, but it was their own dedicated space, and they met there for the next 2 decades. During that time, the wood planks were weakened by termites, and holes were torn in the roof, allowing water to pour in when it rained. What's more, it was dark inside the small space, and it didn't allow the group to grow. Pastor Edson knows that a Maranatha church could greatly help this congregation because he's seen it benefit other groups in his district.
Então, aqui, como eu estava dizendo, no nosso distrito, nós fomos grandemente beneficiados com o trabalho de Maranatha. Porque, como eu disse, das 10 igrejas, 5 é fruto direto de Maranatha. Mas não é a realidade de todo o país. Há muito por fazer aqui. E o nosso maior desafio é termos uma igreja onde agregarmos não só os irmãos, mas aqueles que estarão se agregando a nós, né? Os recém-conversos, né? Então, este é o nosso maior desafio, construir igrejas.
Finally, in recent years, the group raised enough money to buy their own land. They were able to construct a small building, which is a good space, but there isn't room to grow. The Adventist Church in Paraguay asked Maranatha for help, and Maranatha agreed to build a new sanctuary for J. Augusto Saldivar.
Sí, sentí mucho orgullo y mucha alegría en mi corazón porque yo no esperaba tanto así. Pero estoy muy contenta porque he visto tan lindo. Y después cuando yo vengo miro por gracias Señor porque debo es todo tuyo, el oro y la plata. Y te agradezco Señor y le agradezco a los que vienen a hacer esto. Que Dios le bendiga.
Nós que estamos aqui no local, nós que vivemos esta realidade de receber esta bênção, que é a presença de Maranatha, sabemos o quão importante é Maranatha para a vida da igreja, para a vida daqueles que estão recebendo a palavra de Deus. Então, que Deus continue abençoando Maranatha e que eles continuem fazendo essas doações, porque faz a diferença na nossa vida, aonde estamos.
When we come back, meet a congregation of German-speaking members in Paraguay, desperate for their own church building. On Paraguay's eastern border with Argentina lies the town of Hohenau. Over the last century, it's an area that has been settled by immigrants from around the world, forming what's called the United Colonies. People from Italy, Belgium, Russia, Japan, and more have found a home here as a friendly place to live a healthy life and practice their faith. It is a place where people from many backgrounds can work the land and grow in community. There's even a cultural center set aside to honor the diverse cultural heritage of so many who have settled here. One of those groups of settlers comes from Germany. During the middle of the 20th century, Germans began moving to South America, and some landed in Paraguay. As they integrated into society, they retained their cultural heritage and language. Today, many are Paraguayan-born, speaking Spanish as a primary language, along with German.
Ja, meine Familie kam vom Zweiten Weltkrieg mein Urvater kam in Brasilien und nachher zu Paraguay, wo sie hier sind, schon die 3. Generation hier in Paraguay.
Woran erkennt man das?
Others moved relatively recently during COVID and are still in the process of assimilating. All of these backgrounds and more are found in a multicultural congregation in the nearby town of Obligado.
Ja, unsere Gemeinschaft ist angefangen von der Pandemie, wo wir angefangen 2020, haben wir uns dann hier die neue Gemeinde ist, hier aufgebracht. Ja. Wir haben gesehen, dass viele Deutsche kamen und haben keinen Platz gehabt, sich zu treffen. Ja. Und dann haben wir uns mit uns Deutsche zusammen gemacht und die Gemeinde hier aufgebaut. Ja, ja, unsere Gemeinde hier ist speziell, weil wir uns kennen, Deutsche, Paraguayer und auch andere Leute hier alle bekommen. Ja? Für uns ist es, für mir, unsere Familie, sehr schön auch, dass wir uns können treffen mit die ganzen Kulturen. Ja? Deutsche, wir haben auch Iranier gehabt hier und das ist für uns sehr wichtig, auch in diesem Moment hier in unserer Gemeinde. Ja.
With such a diversity of backgrounds, Obligado members speak Spanish, Portuguese, Guarani, and German during worship each Sabbath.
Sean todos bienvenidos a la casa de Dios. Realmente siéntanse como en su iglesia.
Ja, wir heißen uns alle willkommen in unserer deutsch-spanischen Gemeinde. Ruhen, Sabbat, heute ist der Ruhetag und wir wollen den Herrn einladen.
Fue un poquito una barrera al comienzo. Ellos asistieron a la iglesia madre, a la iglesia de Juvenal, pero no pudiendo entender, vimos la necesidad de encontrar un espacio, un lugar donde ellos puedan reunirse y sentirse, digamos, cómodos al estar con sus conciudadanos, con las personas que estén llegando.
Pastor Flores knew of an ADRA building in Obligado that hadn't been used in a decade. He suggested this group of Germans be allowed to meet here temporarily, and church leadership agreed.
Y que creo, ¿verdad?, que Dios dirigió todo para que sea una especie de puente para que nosotros podamos atender a estas personas y sea la base del futuro templo de Obligado. Pero es interesante que Dios envió, por así decirlo, ¿verdad?, gente de Europa que ha venido a las Colonias Unidas buscando un lugar donde haya paz, donde haya respeto, donde haya libertad de culto. Entonces ellos han venido a las colonias y se han interesado en el estilo de vida, ¿no es cierto?, de los adventistas.
Obligado's temporary worship space has allowed the group to establish a consistent meeting pattern, but doesn't allow for growth beyond its current size. There's also not enough room for the children's classes and outreach events.
Wir können viele Sachen machen, wenn wir den Platz haben, dann können wir erst mit der Jugend, wie wir gesagt haben, mit der Jugend, Kinder, ältere Leute, sagt man Vaterkinder und so weiter und andere Sachen, wo man hier kann vielleicht nicht machen, denn unser Platz zu klein ist und das Gebäude, wo hier ist nicht so für eine Kirche. Ja. Das ist ein Wohnhaus hier.
It seemed clear that to accomplish the goals of spreading the gospel throughout the area, they'd need their own larger sanctuary. But without abundant financial resources, the idea of their own church was a far-off dream. First, they'd need land to build on. Then, they'd have to raise the money for construction. The prospect seemed unlikely, if not insurmountable. But Neldo and his family, knowing how important this new church would be to the community, took a leap of faith to get them started and donated their own land for a potential new church. One obstacle down, but there was still the issue of construction funds.
In Paraguay ist es nicht leicht zu Geld immer bekommen oder ist ein bisschen schwieriger, vielleicht wie in Europa, USA und so weiter. Ja. Ein Projekt für ein Gebäude aufbauen ist ein bisschen schwieriger. Und,
Adventist leadership in Paraguay asked Maranatha to build Obligado a church of their own. Maranatha agreed, and soon an in-country crew got to work laying a foundation and erecting a strong metal frame. Then volunteers arrived and diligently built up the walls. Besides construction, volunteers also provided children's programs in the community. For Neldo and the congregation, it was a dream coming true before their eyes.
Für uns ist sehr angenommen, so eine Speise kriegen, ja, von Maranatha her. Für uns ist ein Geschenk, ja. Könnte man ja sagen, dass lieber Gott und das geschickt hat für uns dieses Projekt. Danke Maranatha, dass das Projekt kann anfangen, ja. Dankeschön, Maranatha.
When we come back, the story of one passionate church member who made a lasting impact that continues to be felt in those he mentored. Sometimes you meet a person that makes an indelible impression on you. By their presence and influence, you might even say that they changed your life for the better. Luis Luz had this effect.
Hoy le recuerdo a él porque aprendí mucho de él. Él era una persona muy noble, muy bueno y ayudaba a la población de acá.
Luis was an evangelist at heart. In 1995, he put on an evangelism series in the area of Barrero Guazú, which had no Adventist presence. During the series, he met Elena Barrero, who expressed interest in the Adventist message. Luis began studying the Bible with Elena and was convicted with the gospel. Throughout that time, her daughter was dealing with an illness. When Luis visited, he would pray for her. Eventually, her daughter recovered, and in gratitude to God, Elena donated this land for a new Adventist congregation to meet on. Luis continued to pastor this group for years, but by 2015, the membership had declined, and so did Luis' health. Elderly and ill, he prayed that someone would continue the work. That person was Norma Vera. The two had met at the evangelistic series years before, and since then, he had become a mentor to her. Norma recalls a nagging feeling that she needed to check on Luis. For several days, this notion couldn't get out of her head. Finally, she and her husband went to visit. On her way to visit Luis, she first saw the state of the Barrero Guazú church and then the decline of its pioneer.
Yo me quedé muy triste porque esto estaba todo lleno de maleza. La iglesia estaba como que no tenía vida. Y había un letrerito ahí que el hermano Luis lo había puesto y que él nomás lo hizo así fabricado a mano. Y decía iglesia adventista nada más. Y le dije a mi esposo, ¿cómo es posible que esta sea nuestra iglesia?
Although Norma attended another church in the area, she knew how much the Barrero Guazú church meant to him and wanted to help.
Le dije, hermano, pero yo voy a venir a ayudarte, le dije. Y mi marido me mira así, porque yo era líder en mi iglesia y él era anciano. Y el hermano con los ojos azules me mira así y me dice, hermana, ¿de verdad me estás hablando así? Sí, hermano. ¿Por qué le digo yo? Porque muchos vinieron a ofrecerme su ayuda y se fueron y no vinieron más. Y lagrimeó el hermano. Y yo le dije, no, hermano, yo voy a venir.
The next Sabbath, Norma, her husband, Luis, and one other member met at the church. Norma remembers feeling sad because the structure had deteriorated and it was dark. Not a great environment for worship.
Restauramos la iglesita, pintamos todo, pudimos un costado, ya se estaba cayendo. Tuvimos que mandar a hacer un zócalo de material para que sostenga todas esas cosas así. Y es un lugar muy pobre este lugar. No es un lugar donde hay personas adineradas.
Since starting the church, one of Luis' dreams was to have a larger, more permanent structure. Sadly, he wouldn't see this come to fruition. Luis passed away in 2020. The congregation continues to hope and pray, but without the financial capacity to build something on their own, it remains a long shot. Since then, the wooden church they meet in started to collapse. They moved into another building next door, but it has no room to grow. They need an adequate new sanctuary.
Pero yo tengo la seguridad de que Dios tenía un propósito en este lugar. No va a ser de balde que me haya traído aquí, ¿no? Y yo no entendía al principio, pero después empecé a entender.
The Adventist Church in Paraguay asked Maranatha to help Barrero Guazú bring Luis's dream to life. And Maranatha agreed. The members immediately tore down the existing church to make room for the new one. Luis's dream will be realized. Norman knows how he would feel.
Realizado de cumplir la misión con lo que pudo y con lo que tuvo. Porque no era una persona así de mucho estudio, pero daba todo de él y ayudaba a la gente. Daba tal vez de lo que no tenía, daba. Y al que necesitaba, él estaba allí presente en todo. Y lo más lindo es que todo lo que usted ve aquí construirse fue por el esfuerzo, la unidad y la oración de los hermanos. Porque ninguno tenemos dinero para decir recursos para hacer lo que... Todo lo que aquí está es el esfuerzo de los hermanos. Dios ha contestado las oraciones.
There are many other congregations like Barrero Guazú across Paraguay in need of help. Groups that want to worship in a decent space each Sabbath, spread the gospel, and grow the Adventist Church. But they are unable to do it alone. Join Maranatha's work in Paraguay. Come on a mission trip. Make a donation. Be a part of an answer to prayer for congregations like J. Augusto Saldivar, Obligado, and Barrero Guazú. With your help, we can bring these passionate members into decent spaces that can help advance God's kingdom. Along the way, you'll be helping some of the most kind, passionate people who love the Lord. The people that make Paraguay truly special.